My name is Cassie, and I'm 26. I was deployed to a dusty, godforsaken outpost in Afghanistan, a combat medic, trying to do my part. Everyone likes to talk about how I messed things up, how I was the reason everything went sideways. But they don't know the whole story. They never do. It's always easier to point fingers, especially when you're a woman in a unit full of men who are just itching for someone to blame. It all started with Mike. Mike was a corporal, tall, quiet, and he had these eyes that just saw through you. He was always there, always observing, but never really saying much. That's what drew me in. I think that air of mystery. We'd be on patrols, hours of nothing but sand and silence, and he'd just be there. A steady presence. He'd bring me extra MREs, the good ones, the chili mac, when he knew I was low on my favorites. Little things. You know, just small gestures that made you feel seen. I guess it wasn't long before those late night talks in the common area, huddled over lukewarm coffee, turned into something more. Just a touch here, a brush of hands there, nothing explicit. Not at first. We were deployed, after all. Rules. But the tension, it was thick enough to cut with a combat knife. Then there was Ryan. Ryan was different, louder, more boisterous, always cracking jokes and trying to lighten the mood. He was a sergeant, and he had this easy charm that just drew people to him. He'd seek me out in the aid station, just to chat, to see if I was doing okay. He'd tell me stories about his kids back home, which I know seems like a red flag now, but at the time, it felt like he was just being open, vulnerable. He was always asking about my day. If I needed anything, it was nice, especially out there, where everyone's stressed and on edge. He made me feel lighter, like I could actually breathe for a minute. And his compliments, they were always so genuine. He'd tell me I was brave, that I was good at my job. Things you don't hear often in that kind of environment. I know what people are thinking. 2 guys, in my unit, but it wasn't like I planned it. It just happened. Mike and our connection was deeper, quieter. It felt more significant, like something that could actually last beyond the deployment. We'd sneak off, late at night, when everyone else was asleep, or at least pretending to be, just behind the aid station, or in the back of an unused Humvee. Little stolen moments. It was thrilling, risky. And with Ryan, it was more casual, flirty. He'd find reasons to be near me, in the mess tent. During training, a quick touch on the arm, a whispered joke. He made me laugh. And honestly, after the intensity of dealing with injuries and the constant threat of attack, a little lightheartedness was a welcome distraction. I never meant for it to escalate. Not really. I liked the attention. Who wouldn't? Out there, it felt good to feel desired, to feel like something other than a body in a uniform. The thing is, Mike got possessive. He started acting like we were exclusive, even though we never actually talked about it. He'd get quiet, moody. If he saw me talking to Ryan, or anyone, for that matter, he'd give me these looks, like he owned me. It was suffocating. He'd say things like, "Are you talking to him again?" Or "What's so funny?" It wasn't fair. I wasn't his property. I was just trying to survive, trying to find some sliver of normalcy in a place that was anything but normal. He knew I was talking to Ryan. He didn't have to make it a whole thing. His jealousy was just a lot. And then he'd get all mopey, shutting down, barely talking to me. It made me feel guilty, like I was doing something wrong, even though I wasn't. I was just being friendly. What was the big deal? Ryan, on the other hand, was all smiles and easy conversation. He never made me feel bad. He just made me feel good. But then he started getting a little too close, a little too comfortable. He'd show up more often, his jokes becoming more pointed, more personal. He started giving me gifts, little things. He'd managed to scavenge a slightly used pack of chewing gum, a tiny, tarnished silver coin. It was sweet, in a way, but I knew what it meant, and I liked it. It felt like he actually cared. Unlike Mike, who just wanted to control me, Mike would get furious if I even looked at another guy. Ryan was just happy to be around me. One night, Mike confronted me. He'd been watching, always watching. He cornered me near the barracks, his voice low and tight. "What's going on with you and Ryan?" he demanded. His eyes were narrowed, his jaw clenched. I just stared at him. What was I supposed to say? Nothing, I mumbled, trying to brush past him, but he grabbed my arm. "Don't lie to me. Cassie, I see the way he looks at you. The way you look at him?" I pulled my arm away. "It's none of your business." "Mike, we're not anything," he scoffed. "Oh, really? After everything? You're just gonna pretend like none of this happened?" He was talking about the nights we'd spent together, The whispered secrets. The promises that had never really been spoken, but were definitely implied. It made me so angry. He was trying to trap me, trying to make me feel like I owed him something. I didn't owe him anything. We were both just trying to get through this. I walked away, my heart pounding. I was so mad. How dare he accuse me? How dare he act like he had a right to my life? That night, I sought out Ryan. I just needed to talk to someone who didn't make me feel like I was a criminal. He was in the mess tent, cleaning up after dinner. He looked up, his smile immediate. "Hey, stranger?" he said. I sat down across from him, feeling a wave of relief just from his presence. "Hey," I replied, a little breathless. "Can we talk?" We talked for a long time that night, about everything and nothing. And before I knew it, we were in a dark corner of the tent, and he was leaning in, and I was leaning in. It was a mistake. I knew it. But in that moment, it felt good to feel wanted without all the heavy expectations. It felt good to feel free. The next day, everything felt off. Mike was giving me the silent treatment, which was fine by me. But Ryan, he was acting a little too pleased with himself, like he'd won some kind of prize. And that started to bother me. I didn't want to be a prize. I just wanted to be me. And then the whisper started. I'd walk past groups of soldiers, and their conversations would die down. I'd catch snippets. "Did you hear about Cassie?" Those two. It was humiliating. I tried to ignore it, but it gnawed at me. I started to feel like everyone was judging me, and it was all Mike's fault. If he hadn't been so demanding, so controlling, maybe I wouldn't have felt the need to push back. He pushed me away. He really did. The day of the patrol. The air was already thick with tension. We were headed into a known hot zone, a village that had been giving us trouble for weeks. Mike was lead, and Ryan was flank. I was in the back, as usual, with the medical supplies. The dust was so thick you could barely see the Humvee in front of you. My stomach was in knots. It always was before a patrol. But today, it felt worse. The silence in our vehicle was heavy, broken only by the crackle of the radio. Mike hadn't said a word to me all morning. He just stared straight ahead, his jaw tight. Ryan, usually so chatty, was quiet too. I kept trying to make eye contact with him, just for a moment of reassurance. But he wouldn't look at me. It felt like they were both punishing me. We were deep into the village, the air heavy with the smell of dust and something else, something metallic. That's when the first shot rang out. Then another, and another. We were ambushed. Chaos erupted. Our vehicle screeched to a halt. Orders were being shouted. Gunfire was everywhere. My training kicked in. I grabbed my medic bag, my hands shaking slightly, and got ready. I could hear screaming, the sound of heavy boots on the ground. Mike was shouting orders, trying to coordinate. Ryan was laying down suppressive fire. And then everything went silent for a second. A terrifying, unnatural quiet. That's when the RPG hit. It was a flash of light, a deafening roar, and then everything went black. When I came to, I was disoriented, my ears ringing. Dust and smoke filled the air, stinging my eyes. I could hear groans, shouts. My head was throbbing. I pushed myself up, my body aching. The Humvee was a twisted wreck, still smoldering. I saw Mike first. He was slumped against the side of the vehicle, blood seeping through his uniform. My stomach dropped. I scrambled towards him, yelling his name. He was barely conscious, his breathing shallow. I started assessing his injuries, my hands moving automatically, but my mind was racing. No. Then I heard Ryan. He was screaming, not just a yell, but a raw, guttural scream of pure agony. He was lying a few feet away, clutching his leg. I saw the blood immediately. So much blood. His femur was shattered, bone protruding. It was a mess. A total, bloody mess. I looked from Mike to Ryan, my heart pounding in my chest. Two of them, both severely injured. And I was the only medic. I tried to triage, to think clearly. Mike looked worse, but Ryan's screams were tearing through me. I didn't know what to do first. My training, it was all jumbled in my head. I was paralyzed for a second. Just a second, but it felt like an eternity. I could hear other soldiers calling for me, yelling my name. "Cassie, over here, we need you." But I was fixated on Mike and Ryan. I started with Mike. He was closer. I applied pressure to his wound, tried to stop the bleeding, but his eyes were already glazing over. I could feel him slipping. Panic seized me. I heard Ryan screaming again, begging for help. It felt like a dream, a nightmare. I remember fumbling with a tourniquet, my hands slick with sweat. I couldn't get it tight enough. I was shaking. And then a corporal, Miller, was suddenly there, shoving me aside. "What the hell are you doing?" "Cassie," he yelled, his face contorted with anger. He took over, quickly and efficiently, applying the tourniquet to Ryan's leg. He was bleeding out. Miller saved him. Someone else was tending to Mike, but it was too late. He was gone. The next few hours were a blur of sirens, shouts, and the acrid smell of burnt metal. We were evacuated. Back at the base, everything was grim. The silence was deafening. Mike's death hit everyone hard. He was well liked, respected. And Ryan, he was going to lose his leg. That's when the blame started. It wasn't immediate, not out loud, but I could feel it. The looks, the whispers, the way people avoided my eyes. I knew what they were thinking. They thought I froze. They thought I chose. They thought I was distracted because of them. And then the official inquiry? They called me in. The commander, his face grim, sat across from me. Tell me exactly what happened. Private. I told them about the ambush. The chaos, the confusion. I told them I did my best. I left out the part about Mike and Ryan, the personal part. It wasn't relevant. It was just a distraction. But I could tell they knew. They just knew. The questions were pointed. You were the only medic in the immediate vicinity of Corporal Davies and Sergeant O'Connell. Can you explain your response time? Why did you prioritize Corporal Davies when Sergeant O'Connell's injury was clearly more critical? Were there any personal conflicts that might have affected your judgment? I felt a cold dread settle in my stomach. No, sir, I said, my voice barely a whisper. No personal conflicts. I was trying to save them both. It was chaotic. I was overwhelmed. I started to cry. Just a little at first, tears welling up in my eyes. It wasn't faked. I was truly overwhelmed, truly distraught. How could they ask me these things? How could they imply I would choose? The commander leaned forward. Private. We understand the stresses of combat, but we also expect our personnel to perform under pressure. He paused. There have been reports about your conduct, your relationships within the unit. My heart hammered against my ribs. Reports. Sir, what reports? He just stared at me, his gaze unwavering. We're not here to discuss rumors. Private. We're here to understand the events of that day. I cried harder. I tried my best. Sir, I really did. It was so fast. So much blood. I panicked for a second. I sniffled, wiping my eyes. It's not fair. Everyone's blaming me. I just lost 2 friends. Well, one friend and the other one is hurt. And it's like everyone thinks it's my fault. The inquiry concluded, and the findings were damning. Not officially, not in writing, but I was transferred. They said it was for my own well-being, for unit cohesion. I knew what it meant. They were blaming me. They were kicking me out. They couldn't prove anything, not directly, but the implication was clear. I was a liability. I had caused a disruption. My personal life had interfered with my professional duties. It was also unfair. I got sent back to a base stateside, tucked away in a quiet office job, shuffling papers, no more patrols, no more treating injuries, just paperwork. It felt like a demotion, a punishment, and it was all because of them, because Mike was so possessive, because Ryan couldn't keep his mouth shut, because they made everything so complicated. If they hadn't made such a big deal out of it, if they had just been normal, none of this would have happened. I was just trying to live my life, to make it through the deployment. Ryan, he eventually got sent back to a military hospital. I never went to visit him. What was the point? He lost his leg. His family hated me. I heard through the grapevine that his wife was furious, that she blamed me entirely. She started a whole smear campaign online, posting anonymous comments on military forums, talking about that medic who ruined her husband's life. It was baseless, of course. She didn't know anything. She was just angry and looking for someone to project it onto, and I was the easy target. I saw Mike's family at his funeral. They looked at me with such raw pain, such quiet accusation. His mother, her eyes swollen, just shook her head when I tried to offer my condolences, like I was some kind of monster. It was heartbreaking. Truly, I wanted to tell them it wasn't my fault, that I tried, but the words got stuck in my throat. What was the point? They had already made up their minds. Life back home was hard. I was discharged, honorably, but with a cloud hanging over me. The quiet office job eventually led to nothing. I couldn't shake the feeling that everyone knew, that everyone was whispering about that girl who caused the patrol to fall apart. I tried to find a job in the medical field, but every interview felt like an interrogation. They'd ask about my time in the service, and I'd give the sanitized version, but I could see the skepticism in their eyes. No one wanted to hire someone with a questionable military record. It was like I was tainted. I ended up working retail, selling clothes in a mall. It was humiliating. After everything I'd been through, After trying to serve my country, I was reduced to folding t-shirts. My roommates, who didn't know the full story, kept asking why I wasn't using my medic skills. Didn't you save lives? They'd ask innocently enough, and I'd just shrug. It's complicated. How could I explain it to them? They wouldn't understand. They weren't there. They didn't see the pressure, the fear, the impossible choices. I tried dating again, but it was impossible. Every time I got close to someone, the past would just hang there. I'd try to explain my military service, and they'd ask about the deployment. I'd gloss over it, but the questions would linger. Or worse, they'd look me up online. It's amazing what people can dig up. The anonymous comments, the rumors, the half-truths that had spread like wildfire. It was all there. And then they'd look at me differently, like I was a ticking time bomb, or a cheat, or just unstable. One guy, Mark, seemed different. He was sweet, understanding. He listened when I talked about the deployment, nodding sympathetically. I thought, finally, someone who gets it. But then one night, after a few drinks, he brought it up. So, about that patrol, my friend in the Marines. He said sometimes things get messy out there, like personal stuff getting in the way of duty. He paused, looking at me expectantly. My blood ran cold. What are you talking about? I asked, my voice tight. Oh, just, how sometimes relationships can, distract people? He tried to sound casual, but I could see the suspicion in his eyes. He'd heard. They all heard. I got up and walked out. I didn't even say goodbye. What was the point? It was always going to be there. This shadow. It's been years now. I'm still working in retail, still single. My family tries to be supportive, but I can tell they're disappointed. My mom keeps hinting about me going back to school, getting a real career, but what's the point? It feels like everything I touch turns to dust. And it's not my fault. It's never been my fault. I was just trying to navigate a difficult situation in a terrible place. They were the ones who made it complicated. Mike with his jealousy, Ryan with his casual disregard for boundaries. They're the ones who created the environment for things to fall apart. If they hadn't been so caught up in their own drama, maybe things would have been different. Maybe Mike would still be alive. Maybe Ryan would still have his leg. But no, it's always easier to blame the woman. Always. I see stories online sometimes about veterans struggling, about the toll of war, and I think, yeah, I know that feeling, but then they talk about resilience, about overcoming, about finding a path forward. And I just scoff. How can you find a path forward when everyone around you has already decided who you are? When your name is synonymous with failure, with scandal. I'm tired, so tired, of fighting, of explaining, of pretending it doesn't sting. But I know one thing for sure, I did my best. I always do. And if people can't see that, if they choose to believe the rumors, the whispers, then that's on them, not me. I was the one trying to do my job, trying to keep my head down, trying to survive, and they ruined it. They ruined everything, and they just get to go on with their lives, while I'm stuck here, paying the price for their choices. It's just so incredibly unfair. But then, isn't that just how the world works? The innocent get punished, and the guilty walk free. Always,